On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we're diving into your mailbag questions. Is the Thunder's rebuild over? An OKC Blue update and some more goofy ones as well. So let's get into it on today's Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. This show is about you. It is your mailbag questions to get us through the day. We're going to be answering all of your questions about the show. So you can subscribe to Locked On Thunder wherever podcasts are found and on YouTube. Let's dive into your first question of the day. Let's see. This comes from Shai Gorgeous. Do you think Shai has a realistic shot at all defensive team? His counting stats and advanced stats defensively have him top to 1 or 3 guard defender in the league, and they have improved a lot from last year. So yeah, Shai is a really good defender. Shai is an excellent defender according to Synergy. His Synergy stats on the defensive end are insane, and you can see what he does in the raw counting stats of like stocks and stuff. Shai is awesome defensively, and it is rare to have a player who makes some game-changing plays on that end that also produces 30 points a night on the offensive end, especially with how taxing his game is offensively as well. Going to the rack every single time, taking on contact and getting fouled, all that good stuff. So Shai is absolutely a all defensive caliber player. It gets back to where the discussion was at about Shai's all-star appearance 2 years ago, where it's like he's an all-star caliber player 2 years ago, but the voting process is different and not necessarily going to take on a player like Shai in the all-star at that time, given where the team was at, given where other players in the league were at. And so with all defensive team, I think that they try to spread the wealth around, so to say. Like, if your calling card is defense, and that's kind of a way that the league can acknowledge you or kind of tip their hat to how good you are, then they're going to take advantage of that on the all defensive team. In terms of just merit, like, does he have a shot to be all defensive team? Absolutely. Like, in terms of merit, he absolutely should be on the all defensive team if it ended today. Now, again, you got to continue this for another 60 something games, but in general, Shai, I think, does have a shot at all defensive team because if he plays at this level defensively, and we know what he can do offensively for the sustained season, the Thunder are going to be top 6 in the West. I think they're going to be top 4 in the West if he continues to play this way on the defensive end, just because of how good his pieces around him are defensively. If he's playing that well as the head of the snake on defense, then it trickles down to where the whole team is just awesome defensively. That's why they're top 5 in defense right now. There's really little to exploit defensively. So at that point, you'd have a 30-point per game scorer who's making a high impact defensively, who also has a top 4 record in the West. It'd be tough to keep him off an all defensive team. So I'm interested to see kind of how the positionless nature kind of factors into things, because we typically give a lot of credit and a lot more credit to big men and bigger wings, but typically big men for their defensive prowess and how good they are defensively. I still don't think that the positionless nature will make 5 bigs on the defensive team, but I think that it will allow them to play with some more bigs on the team than not. So that even limits your guard spots even more. But I think that he has a chance. He's laid the foundation to make his appearance in an all defensive team be non-negotiable. He's laid the foundation to where it's not even a thought. You have to do it for Shai if he continues to play this way he's playing right now. This next question comes from @Bryce Patrick, of course, the host of Locked On Rangers, my guy over there at Locked On Rangers, World Series champion, Texas Rangers, by the way. So a lot of overlap here in Oklahoma and Texas Rangers. If you like the Rangers, go check out Locked On Rangers to follow along with the World Series champs this offseason and, of course, all of next year. Who is the Adolis Garcia of the Thunder? So, from my perspective, Adolis Garcia is a guy who, had some talent, but like the Cardinals got rid of him, and he kind of flew under the radar. And then the Rangers picked him up, and then boom, he becomes this huge megastar, hitting monumental home runs, historic home runs in the postseason. And so, and throughout the season, of course, he was an all-star. He was an awesome player. So, when you translate that to the Thunder, I would have to say that it's Isaiah Joe of like, here's a guy who, people were excited for him out of college. He was a second-round pick, but doesn't get a lot of time in Philadelphia. Philadelphia just outright waives him before the start of last year, signed him off the street last year at like, 3 days before the season opener, 4 days before the season opener. And then now all of a sudden he is the sixth man. He's the key cog of what you do rotationally for the Thunder and is a important piece to help them win games. So my mind immediately goes to Isaiah Joe. Now Isaiah Joe, not going to be an all-star, not going to be a finals MVP, but still the correlation of the trajectories of their careers leaping up from where Isaiah Joe was whenever he was waived by Philadelphia to where he is now is still a significant jump. Just like Adolis Garcia had a significant jump from where he was when the Cardinals got rid of him to where he is now with the Texas Rangers and the Texas Creed Rangers. That was a great story. Creed taking over. Imagine that. I'm gonna try to pitch J-Dub and J-Will on. Actually, probably Kendrick Williams is my best chance at this. Let's have the Thunder rally around the Grateful Dead, huh? Like the Rangers, they rallied around Creed in the locker room, the clubhouse for like July until October, and they won the World Series. If Grateful Dead has that kind of juice, can you take me higher? Absolutely a banger. I totally agree. What can the Grateful Dead do for you? What can the Grateful Dead do for you? I think they can help you win the Larry O'Brien. So I'm gonna have to get a talk with them, just to see what we have there with the Grateful Dead. We're going to continue on with your mailbag questions. We have time for another one in this segment. Chicken says, "What's up with Vasa?" So it's interesting. I totally realize that. I mean, this is a 2-time EuroLeague MVP. This is a guy that won a couple EuroLeague championships, and we all thought that he would be a pivotal part in what the team's doing because last season the secondary unit lacked playmaking, they lacked organization, they lacked kind of that facilitator to help them bridge the gap between Shai minutes and non-Shai minutes. And he seemingly fit perfectly into that. He's been very open and honest about his, struggles, having his game translate to the NBA defensively. And it's only been 20 games. And I think that it's important to note too, and I asked Mark about this, and Cam Woods about this, but Mark about this whenever the last game was, or practice was, he sends Ousmane Dieng down there to practice all the time, even when there's no games on, of course, to just practice. And he's done it with a lot of guys, Trey Mann, all those guys. What's the difference in a G League practice and NBA practice? And I already kind of knew the answer, but I just wanted to hear it from him to not assume things. And he mentioned that in the NBA, your practices, once the season starts, are not really practices to the extent of getting better and developing and learning things. They're practices to the extent of recovery. And so you're going to go out there, you're going to recover your body and everything, move around and everything, but you're not going nose to the grindstone in practice. And so just because you see us all the time out there at practice, and we have a couple media availabilities at practice every day, and film some shoot around stuff at practice. That's not a true representation necessarily for Vasa to get better defensively and get more comfortable with it. Now they're trying to put him through the paces, and he's getting a front row seat to NBA action, and of course the film room is very important. But like that part of his game, he's openly admitted is a different learning curve, because the game is totally different. Like it's not necessarily anything that Vasa is doing wrong. It's just like in EuroLeague there is no 3-second call. So he pointed that out his first time talking to us outside of media day. He pointed that out of like in EuroLeague there's no 3-second call. So your big man could just sit there, and if you get beat, you're funneling him into a big man who's already at the rim, already in position to stop it, and like he is just has your back so much because he's just allowed to sit there. There's no 3-second call. And then he mentioned that like in the EuroLeagues, the offenses and the defenses, they're not as spread out. Like there's not enough space. The floor is different here in the NBA. So the floor is spread out more, and in the NBA they're more ISO heavy versus what they are in the EuroLeague. So you are defending on an island, whereas in the EuroLeagues, he could kind of be a part of a team construct defensively, and his teammates can help him. He can help, and they can kind of work together to come up with any sort of, leveling off of deficiencies defensively. So I say that to say this: you're not going to get there in 20 games. You're not going to get there in 20 games because even though you do see as a practice, those practices are not necessarily enough to grow that steep learning curve. Now, I think that right now, I would still, even 20 games in, and even as frustrating as it's been for some fans to not see Vasa play, right now, today, I would still bet money that by the end of the season, Vasa is a much bigger part of the rotation than he is right now. I don't think that this will be, a Gabby Deck situation. I think that he will actually legitimately play for the Thunder. It's just that you have the luxury of giving him time because other guys are playing well at that position. You have the luxury to give him time. I mean, J-Dub stepped up in a big way as a playmaker for the bench unit. Whenever they stagger him to the bench, of course, Kaysen and Isaiah Joe and those guys play really well. So you have the luxury of doing it, and you're just kind of letting him grow and develop. So I still think he'll be a part of what the Thunder want to do. That's just the vibe I get from all of this. So that's where I think I'm at with Vasa. But good question. I know it's an important question, so always happy to answer it. Now, I'm also always happy to go to our good friends over at FanDuel. Folks, FanDuel's great. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go there right now, and new customers get $150 in bonus bets for winning any $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And so the money line is literally just who you think will win. So you can go there, pick the biggest favorite on the board, and boom, as long as they come through and win, then you win and you get the $150. You can also go there and bet on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. It's so fun to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now because you got everything. You got bowl mania in college football. You got the NFL postseason, NFL season going down the stretch run to the postseason, NBA, NHL, college basketball. You've got it all. Like tonight's in-season tournament knockout round games where the Lakers are a 1.5 favorite at home against the Suns. So where do you go there with that game? So go to FanDuel.com right now. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. New customers, $150 on a $5 money line bet win. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Morgan Workman says, can you give an update on Ousmane Dieng? What is he learning in the G League? What areas of his game have you seen him most improve in? Is he on track with his development? When do you envision him being back with the Thunder and getting rotational minutes of the pod and your insight? Thank you, Morgan. So I don't think that it is hyperbolic to say this is Ousmane Dieng's best G League stint that he's ever had. Last year, as someone who has watched every single possession of his G League career, last year he was very timid in the G League still. He kind of just floated around and he never really gelled enough in the G League. He had flashes, of course, but in the totality of things, he was still very timid and didn't really know what to do in the sense of like, hey, with this group of players, right, in the blue, I can be the guy. I can be the ball handler. I can be the scorer, but that's not what you're working on. And so, so that kind of threw him off a little bit. This year, it's been made, and I'm not going to say that it wasn't made clear to him last year, but I'm saying this year it's been made extremely clear what he's doing, what he's working on. Whereas last year, the whole point of it was offensive force, like just play with better offensive force, just like, and this. So let me rephrase. Last year, Mark and Cam, the only phrase that they used was offensive force. They used that with him and Jay Will. So by watching him play, it looked like they were trying to get him to just simply play more offense in the sense of an engaged offensive role and an aggressive offensive role. And the results don't matter. And how you do it doesn't necessarily matter. Just do it, right? That's what it felt like watching. This year, it's been way more defined by both Mark and Cam Woods of like, they are trying to, integrate him with the Blue the same way they're going to play him with the Thunder, where you're only going to play, you're only going to play in these short bursts. The bottom line is, for this Thunder team this year, he is only going to Ousmane Dieng is only going to play in small little snippets. He's going to be a rotational player for the Thunder this year, if he's able to track this development. And so they've been talking, to Ousmane about, you can't spend your first 2 or 3 minutes on the court getting loose, getting warm, getting ready to go. You've got to just be ready. And that's a very, very hard thing to do. It is incredibly hard as a player. I've talked to Cam, who is a great player at Butler, and other players like that is insanely hard to do. So they're working on him to be more intentional with what he's doing with the Blue, and it's worked out. He's done really good. He's been really aggressive on both ends, but offensively, he's dunking the ball more, which is great to see from him. He's being an active cutter, and he's knocking down some catch and shoot looks that you like to see. And I think that he's finding the right balance of putting the ball on the deck after he catches it versus just keep the ball moving. And I think that overall, Ousmane Dieng's really improved, and I think that he is on track. I think that he gets punished, and punish is not the right word, but follow me. He gets punished by the success of J-Dub and Chet and these guys and Kaysen and these guys who, as a rookie, they come in and they're just rearing up, ready to go, playing great NBA basketball. Those guys also come from a very different environment of like Chet played at Gonzaga, Kaysen played at Kentucky, and of course J-Dub was a multi-year college player. Everyone understood that with Ousmane Dieng, you did take him 11th overall. That's for sure. But he was going to be a guy who took time. And so taking a year and 20 games is not as though he's behind schedule or anything like that. But I think Ousmane Dieng is on time. I think he's playing his best basketball. I wrote about that for Thunderous Intentions over there. I also wrote about this question from Craig. What OKC Blue players have impressed you the most that you think could make the NBA, even if not with OKC? So typically, whenever G Leaguers make the NBA, it's often not with their parent club because, if you didn't know, everyone on the G League roster besides a signee, so like Ousmane Dieng, for example, is an assignee. Trey Mann today is an assignee. Besides those guys and the three-way contract, so that would be Lindy, Olivier, and Keyontae Johnson. Besides those guys, everyone else in the G League, if a team wants to sign you to an NBA contract, they can. Even though you're technically a contracted player for the Blue, the NBA team can just come get you on a 10-day, on a 2-way, on a standard deal, whatever they want to get you on, they can do it. And so that's a pathway for them to get to the league. Even though they are technically playing for Oklahoma City, they're showcasing themselves to all 30 teams, including the Thunder. But the Thunder, we know the Thunder's roster constraints. We know that they're filled to the brim, and there's not necessarily a ton of guys who you want to get rid of in Oklahoma City to make room, because they have a full roster. So to make room for a Blue player, they'd have to cut somebody right now. So that's just not going to happen realistically. I'm rooting for all the Blue players to have success, but there's not going to be a realistic pathway to get a Blue player on the Thunder, in my opinion. However, there is many realistic pathways to get a Blue player to the NBA. I listed out 3 guys on Thunder's Intentions and gave a way in-depth look at their stats and why their games could translate. I want to first say Jahmi'us Ramsey. Jahmi'us Ramsey was once thought of as a first-round prospect, and he's still only 22 years old. And yes, his first stint in the NBA did not go good. And I talked to many scouts, and all the scouts were worried about the fact that his first few years in the G League, he was just a bucket getter that was a bucket getter because he's just out athleting guys. Like he is just battery ramming his way to the rim. He can do it. He can impose as well on these G League players, but that's not how he is going to succeed in the NBA. And at the end of last year, after he had his, an injury, at the end of last year and this year, he has changed the way he's played to make it a more NBA friendly style of things he can succeed at. And Cam Woods has talked about how, they discussed and they moved him off ball because that they thought that could fix his jump shot. It has. He's shooting 40% from three, great numbers on the catch and shoot. He has truly unlocked a 3-point shot to this point. Now, you've got to remember the NBA season is 20 games in. The G League season is not. The G League season is still very young. So it's a very small sample size still, in the sense of like just sheer games played. But the shot looks a lot better. It looked a lot better last year. It's improved again this year. So you're seeing continued improvement from Jahmi'us Ramsey. And if he can shoot the ball like that and he can score at the rim, this is a guy who, for a guard needy team, especially as we get down to the extent of this season and more bruises come, and the third two-way deal, of course, is an option now. That was great for all these G League players that you now have a third two-way deal. Jahmi'us Ramsey should absolutely get another shot. Like if you're sitting around, Washington right now, for example, or even San Antonio, like once San Antonio gets to the back end of this season, I think that they should try out Jahmi'us. Now they have a weird roster because like a lot of their two-way guys are players that they have invested in, they've drafted in. So that's going to kind of bar him to that extent. But I think Jahmi'us is a good shot to impress people at the Winter Showcase. That's another big deal. A couple weeks from now, the Winter Showcase will be in Vegas, and that's where Trey Mann dropped like 50 points last season. But the Winter Showcase, it's in Vegas. All the executives get together there, and you are literally playing. It's literally a showcase. Like the decision makers from the NBA are there, and they're watching, and they might be impressed. And that's kind of when you start to see guys go for 10-day deals, guys go for tryouts with NBA teams. So Jahmi'us Ramsey's one. KJ Williams is like a really good big man, and he's not some 7-footer, but he's like 6'10", and he is an excellent shot blocker at the cost of nothing. So there's other guys who we've talked about on the show that play for the Thunder, where yes, Sarr gets a ton of blocks, but oftentimes it costs positioning whenever he doesn't get the block. KJ Williams has a really good ability to go for blocks and not cost you positioning and time them so well that he gets the blocks, and he's not overzealous. He's not block hunting. He understands when, hey, I'm not going to get this block. So what can I do? I can just contest it. I'm not going to go try to swat this thing to the third row. I'm just going to try to contest it and wall up at the rim, and it creates stops. The thing with KJ is going to be his 3-point shot. And credit to Cam Woods, they're letting him shoot threes because KJ is another example. KJ has proven game in and game out that like he can score on the rim at anybody in the G League. Like you give him the ball near the basket, he's going to just destroy the rim. And he's going to destroy the defense. But his game will not translate that way in the NBA. Like when you play NBA bigs, he's not going to be able to do that. So he's got to work on that 3-ball, and they're trying to work that in. He hit the chaotic game winner at the Paycom Center logo a few weeks ago. So KJ is another one that can make it. And then Caleb McConnell. I've written about Caleb McConnell as well. And, if the 3-point shot falls, his defense is sub none. Like his defense is impeccable. That's why they call him the blanket. His defense is great. So if he can get the 3-ball to go around, then he is worth a shot on one of these 3 two-way deals for these teams, especially some teams that aren't necessarily like utilizing their 2-way deals. But we're going to talk more about your mailbag questions coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast. But first, let's hear right now, our friends over at Gametime. Folks, Gametime is great. Gametime is there for you because they have the last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed for you. And you get these killer deals. The thing I love about Gametime is that, look, everyone's an NBA fan here, right? You care about the NBA. You want to go to these games, But we know the deal with the NBA. We know the game. Sometimes guys are on the injury report and they're questionable, or they're probable, or they're a game time decision. When that happens, you don't want to buy a ticket and not see your favorite guy and not see your favorite player. That's why Game Time's so great, because Game Time lets you buy tickets right up until tip off. That way you can know all the information that you need to go into these games. So they have last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. Go there right now, and you get a view from your seat. And that view from your seat is so critical to know exactly what you're signing up for, exactly what you're getting with Game Time. So check them out today. Go to gametime.com or the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's $20 off your first purchase whenever you use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Just create that account and use that code on the Game Time app for those prices. Last minute tickets guaranteed. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Folks, check out the Locked On Sports Today national YouTube channel. It's a 24-hour stream, 24 hours, 7 days a week stream on YouTube of your stories in sports. Every story from our national channels to our local experts and our local channels, so you can just put it on at the office. It's going to cycle through the biggest news of the day from all of our Locked On podcasts. It's going to be our Locked On podcast just on a loop on YouTube. We're going to go bang, 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 bang through the biggest stories of the day and get you caught today on all of your sports. So let's continue with your mailbag questions. We have another one from Craig. Are the games this week considered in-season tournament games in terms of court and uniforms? So for the Thunder, no. Thunder's games are no longer in-season tournament games. They are just normal regular season games. Now, for the knockout round and for Vegas, of course, those are in-season tournament games. Those were the knockout round and the Final Four of the in-season tournament and the championship of the in-season tournament. But for the Thunder, Wednesday against the Rockets, Friday against the Warriors, those are just normal regular season games. They did not advance in the in-season tournament. I don't know what the Rockets are wearing. That they might still wear their spaceship uniforms, but the Thunder are not going to have the court and anything on Friday against the Warriors, from my knowledge. So this is not going to be in-season tournament games for OKC. Let's continue on with your mailbag questions. Here we have Cody. This may sound crazy when looking at balancing Josh Giddey's minutes. Do you think that we'll see him under the 15-minute mark or even getting run with the Blue? He needs floor time to find himself. But so with Josh Giddey and the Blue, I'm not sure that he'll ever go to the Blue necessarily. But yeah, I mean, his minutes will be based upon his production. And like Mark has proven that this season, that like he played him 17 minutes last game against the Dallas Mavericks. 17 minutes is not all that far off from 15. I don't know that he'll ever get down to 15, but like, yeah, I don't know if he'll ever go to the Blue necessarily, because the bottom line is, Josh Giddey is going to be able to score at the rim with the Blue. He just is. It doesn't really matter though. Like you've got to do it with the Thunder. Now you can argue that would like give him confidence, kind of, sure. Like if he goes to the Blue, but I don't think he will. I think that there's other reasons why like that it wouldn't be wise to do that necessarily. But at some point he's got to turn it around. Like, and I think that at some point you just got to start making your shots at the rim. Like that would take care of a lot of these issues if he was like making shots at the rim on the court. So we'll continue on with your mailbag questions from Euro Thunder. Is the rebuild complete? This is a tricky question of like, what does that mean necessarily? Like the Thunder are trying to win games and they're trying to win every single game they play from here on out, but they're still building their roster. Like they're still going to, have a lot of draft picks this draft, at least a couple of draft picks in this draft, of course, depending on protections and everything, a couple of draft picks in this draft. They're still going to continue to make some changes to the roster to benefit them. as the years progress. So it's always going to be a constant building stage. But like, yeah, this team is trying to compete. They're trying to contend. The typical knock on young teams is that it's not going to that you need to go through some of the learning curve. So I'm not going to say that they're going to go far in the postseason, but they're trying to. That's the goal. The goal is not to do anything else. So if that's the only thing you mean by rebuild, then I'd say that, yeah, it is complete. But like, of course, the roster will still continue to change throughout the next few years, and really through the end of time, the rosters are always going to change whenever you're playing in the NBA. Trey Thomas, what would it take to make you change your tune on the Thunder being title contenders this year? A larger sample size, number one. But I mean, if I'll tell you this: if we get to March 1, and March 1 comes around, and the Thunder are still top 5 in both offensive and defensive, rating, then yeah, they are title contenders. But my biggest thing is not like how they're playing in the 82 game season. I think that this Thunder team is built for 82 games. I said that all throughout the offseason. This Thunder team is deep enough to every single night. They should be able to flip through and find 8 or 9 guys who are playing good basketball that night to help you win games, or at least help you compete in games. They've done that. I said that they're going to rack up a lot of wins because they're going to take these games more seriously than other teams. They've been able to rack up wins. So like I was always very confident they'd be a really good regular season team. It's just that like when you get to the postseason, it's a different ballgame. Some players elevate their games. Some players take a step back. We've never seen Mark in the postseason before, and I think that he can do it. I crowned Mark as the best Thunder coach in Thunder history in January of his first season, which didn't start until December 22nd. So like, Mark is clearly in a way an impressive coach, and I think that the verdict is going to be out on any coach until you get to the postseason, right? But for me, I think that the way that the style he uses would work in the postseason, but still, you've got to go through some of those things. So we're going to do some rapid fire stuff here to end this thing. From Big Dog, how do you like them apples? I like Gala apples. I like Gala apples sliced, dip it in some peanut butter. Those are fantastic. But I like Gala apples just in general too, independent of anything else. But yeah, Shai McIntosh, I need to put on some Gala apples. I think he'll go right in. Smokey Bear says, do you think Jay will have a chance to dethrone Nick Collison as Mr. OKC? No, not necessarily like dethrone him as like, I think that the personal connection to Nick Collison that a lot of Thunder fans have will always, you always remember your first, right, baby? And so, you go there and the stories of like the guys he was around and literally, watching this thing get built, literally, like from practicing in a roller rink to the fancy schmancy Thunder practice facility I'm about to be late getting to right now. Like he was a part of something insanely special. Now, stylistically on the court and longevity, Jay Will could be here for a long time and could play that same kind of role. But in sense of like the nickname Mr. Thunder, maybe like Mr. Thunder 2.0, but like I don't think anyone can ever dethrone Nick Collison. These are some great questions. We're going to get to a lot more of these on tomorrow's show, or at least sometime this week, because there's like an arena question, there's some trade questions, there's 3 things every Thunder fan should know. That's going to be a great question to get to, and we have to skedaddle here for practice, and we've already ran over time a little bit today on today's show. So thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I really appreciate all of you listening to today's show. Follow along for free on YouTube and any other podcasting platforms that you have. Follow me on Twitter. And since we're going to carry this over into another show, you can get more questions in on the YouTube comment section and on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. And until tomorrow, be good. Be good to one another.